Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Why Do You Believe? And today I'm talking to Ali, and Ali is representing, uh, well, I don't know about a flat Earth society or a movement, but Ali is of the mind that the Earth is actually more of a disk than a sphere. Would that be a fair statement, Ali?
I would say more of a flat plane because we do have mountains and things, but for the most part, yes.
A plane. So it continues forever?
No, sir. It does not continue forever simply because there was created, it was made for us. So there is a limit to the earth itself.
Okay. Yeah, before we get into all that, I wanted to share something. When I became an activist, it had a great deal to do with the image that I want to share. Right now, I'm going to try to do shared screen. All right, so taking a look at that. Hopefully, you can see it. This is the moon Miranda. It's a tiny little world. It's only about 300 miles across, about the size of Sri Lanka, and it has this odd feature on it, which is called the chevron, which you can see in the lower, say, right hand side of it. It's kind of like a check mark, and there's a great deal of speculation as to what caused that. As you can see, there's a lot of
See,
ridges all the way around the planet that looks like it's been molded, like it's been actually physically moved a number of times. And the interesting thing, and one of the things that got me started as an atheist activist, was looking at this world and thinking that nobody knows how this happened. This place is too small for tectonic activity. There's this could have happened a billion years ago, but people never saw it. We never had anything to do with it. It's only by happenstance that we happen to have a probe that could take a look at this from a great distance away. This world orbits around Uranus, and so this was just one of the things that told me that we are not like the center of the galaxy, or that everything is not about us, because I mean we're only looking at this one thing in our own solar system. We can't even say anything about other solar systems or other galaxies for that matter.
mhm.
Yeah, and another example I'd like to share about that, let me just close that all together, is this other one. This is a moon of Neptune, and this is Triton. And if you'll notice, Triton has these features on it again that we don't know where this came from. It looks like one side of the world was scorched, or maybe there was some kind of a growth that happened only on one side of the planet. I would think that it's probably temperature based, but again, we don't know what this is. These are events that are transpiring, have always been going on before us, will continue after us, and have nothing to do with us. So it's difficult for me to see the world as being created for us. Do you have any comment on either of the images I've just shown you? Ali?
The fuck is,
I'm
can you
sorry?
hear me?
Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, the first image, actually about both of the image. A year ago, been on a year ago, I would have been believing everything about the Earth being spinning it through space the way that science would like us to believe. Image. The check mark is interesting. The one thing that out is just like our moon, or something must have impacted the moon. If there was an impact, they must have all been at a certain angle in order for it to be right spot on where that trail where it hit that moon that you uh, showed the first picture of. There's no drag marks of it hitting at an angle. Everything is just like right where it's placed, almost like if you took a handful of marbles and dropped them in the dirt. Almost reminds me of, and it looks like our moon are, because there's no our moon either. That I've noticed on the first picture that you showed me.
Maybe I should open that again.
Second picture, that light is coming from.
where the lag, you're able to hear that too? Hello? Hello?
You speaking to me,
Yes.
sir?
Yes.
I, I can. Were you wanting to pull an image back up?
Yeah, I was going to pull the image back up. Give me just a moment. Screen share,
Okay.
and there's Miranda. On the far right, you see a curving motion to all the stratigraphy there. And now that could be caused by a number of things. And I think that maybe the gravity of something passing by but not actually impacting. You know, and
But even
this check mark could be an impact, or it could be the way that the magma cooled and contracted. So I don't know.
but I'm talking about the craters there.
Okay.
The check mark and the check mark and the swirls actually adds more mystery to this image. It's because the impact craters do not show any dragging. Let's say the movie Transformers, the first one, when they were coming into Earth, you can see when the Transformers hit Earth, they left a trail behind them as they the Earth, just like our moon, our own drag marks at all. It just seems like whatever hit just hit, boom, nothing there. Now, logically, that there would be drag marks coming at different angles, especially in space. So many different.
Well, if you have something that's rocketing past, and the closer it gets, the more influence the gravity has, the more it arcs. So most of your impacts are going to be head on, or direct into it like that, because the gravity's pulling them down into it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Okay. I could understand that completely. Even most of them, I could understand most, but for the entire picture here, I could only say that be considered a drag mark from it right here, just to the left of the check mark. Mm-hmm. There are two lines that are there, but besides that, it's photography for sure.
Okay.
But
all right, well, I think we've covered.
Effectively, I wouldn't be able.
Yeah, let me jump off of that for a moment and unshare my screen if I can. How do I? Here we go. All right. Old men in technology. I'm so inept at this. So anyway, you know where I come from in my examination of this, and I want to know where your perspective is. You said that until a year or so ago, you accepted the normal thing about the Earth careening through space and all of this. And what was it that convinced you otherwise?
Vince, watch. I never really paid. This flat Earth kept with videos that were actually showing.
I don't mean to jump in, but we do have some problems with the audio. Do you have other applications open? You're on a computer, right? Okay. I'm going to ask
the only about that.
Right now, that seems good. I just didn't want another program to be causing the problem, because there was a problem and I couldn't understand what you were saying. So please continue or start again.
Okay. I was bored at work one night. I was watching YouTube and I came across a flat Earth video. The flat Earth video showed a direct comparison from saying more and leaning more towards a general observation of things. And that really started sparking my interest. So I started to watch more. And that actually really got me is that I was walking to work one day, and because of the flat Earth videos, I was able to actually understand that, hey, there's clouds behind the sun. So I started looking for this type of, and it would be for me at that point. So I was away, and I guess right. I looked up at the sun, and with my naked eye, because of the way that the sun was inside, I was actually a set of clouds enveloped the sun, and the clouds were because the sun was inside of the clouds, and it absolutely blew my mind. Actually started crying, and I called my mama. That's what I did, because it really everything I ever believed to be real in my life. From that point, it just really caused me to really examine what I've been told and observe myself, and that's where I am now.
Do you do much? Have you traveled much?
I have not traveled much abroad, so to speak, but I have traveled throughout the United States in some parts.
Okay, I've done an awful lot of travel in the last few years. I've been to 22 countries so far.
Wow.
Since I started doing full-time activism, and Australia, through Europe, a couple times each, and I've seen some things too that I think are going to be relevant here. Do you fly very much, even in the US?
I do not. I have not. I've only flown once, and I fell asleep. I don't even remember. It was a comfortable flight.
Okay, little different for me. I've been on. I think there's 3 years now that I've been over 30 airplanes a year.
Oh wow, man.
So, yeah, and some of those flights are kind of crazy. Like I did one from Dallas to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, like all in one shot. No, it wasn't. It was Muscat, Oman, but it was a trip to Dubai. But I mean, it was a 17-hour flight.
Oh my goodness!
It seems cheating to me because it always seemed to me that you should hop to the coast for whatever reason, and then hop across the ocean, and then land at the first coastal city, and then continue. But no, we can fly all the way, to this other thing direct now. And one of the things I wanted to point out was that I've seen the image of the sun piercing through the clouds because it's a brilliant light. And if the clouds are thin, then the sun is going to pierce right through them. And so it will look for all the world like the clouds are behind it. But when you get into an airplane, you'll notice that there are levels of clouds.
Yes.
I think I've seen 5 different levels of clouds, or let's call them cloud strata, if you will.
Oh, yes, sir.
And I've been where we are now some indeterminable distance way above the highest level of clouds. Usually, the highest level.
It's a couple thousand feet at least.
Yeah, usually the highest level of clouds that you see, the airplane is above those. And the sun is still above those. It's still always above the airplane, even though you're always above. The airplane typically cruises above the cloud level. But I wanted to, do you have a vision of the world as to how does a flat Earth work? If you can just take a moment and explain that.
Work in what sense?
Well, you said it's not a continuous plane. It's a disk. Now, you said it was created for us, so I'm going to take that that's a religious belief.
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay.
No.
If it was not created by a god, then who created it?
Well, you said religion. Religion was made by man in order to justify their own means. It has nothing to do with religion at all.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with a god.
It has to do with a god, but not the religion as far as Christianity, Hinduism,
well,
Buddhism.
I wasn't specifying which religion, but the way that I define religion is that it's any faith-based belief system that posits the idea that some essence of self somehow survives the death of the physical body to continue on in some supernatural form. So,
okay, if you're defining religion in that way, yeah, it's a religion. It's
okay.
Religion.
Okay, so it was created by a god, and how does this? Well, I was going to say that being an atheist activist, I'm very well aware of how the Bible describes the Earth, which most Christians don't seem to be aware of. As a matter of fact, I was in this argument earlier today with someone in my own family who was insisting that the Bible doesn't say that the Earth is a flat disk divided into 4 quadrants and covered by a giant crystal dome and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to show all these citations to show that the Bible really does, in fact, say all of these things. Now, is that what you're basing your position on?
I'm basing my position on that. Yes.
Okay. So it is the way the Bible describes the Earth, and that includes the firmament.
It does.
Okay, describing the sun and the moon as both being the same size, both inside the firmament with all of the stars in the concavity of the firmament, but again inside of it. Okay, and what would you say is beyond the firmament?
For me, I believe beyond the firmament is actually heaven.
Okay, as in the place where people go when they die.
Well, not the place where people go when they die. I believe that there's a separate place. That place is separated because physical plane. Once you die, your spirit or your soul or what have you goes to a separate place to wait until Jesus comes back. That's a whole nother thing.
Okay. So in your perspective, you said that you had
I believe that outside the firmament, I believe is heaven.
Okay, and the firmament, you would agree, is the way that the Bible described it as rakia, that it's a solid, like molten, solid crystal-like, or like molten glass. Would that?
I would say that vision came from looking side of the dome. In the inside of the dome, we get a very view rather than the outside. And I believe that when the molten glass it was seen as a terrible crystal by Ezekiel, if I'm remembering that correctly. I believe that they were looking at it from the outside, because from the inside we could definitely see something different.
Okay, now you had mentioned that until about a year ago, you held the conventional view of the Earth being a sphere, and then you changed your mind. And obviously, you didn't just convert to Christianity within a year ago. You already held your religious belief for some time prior to that, right. Probably all your life, right?
Yeah, just like anyone, grew up in the church, Southern Baptist, following the traditions of people who came before me. This is what I've told I need to do, so I need to do it.
So whether the Earth is flat,
definitely,
globe doesn't impact religious belief either way.
No, it does not.
Okay, well that's good. You'd be ashamed to have everything collapse or be so pivotal on one thing.
Yeah, no way. No way.
So on a version of how it works, I mean, like there's the story in the Bible where the windows in the firmament open up to let the rain in. So we are led to believe that basically the Earth is a snow globe.
Yeah,
it's a flat disk that stands on pillars. It's covered by a dome. The dome has windows in it. If the windows open, the water comes in, and then underneath, you've also got fountains that draw the water up from the bottom. So we basically are a snow globe in a vast oceanic abyss somewhere.
Yes. In the wells, the water already existed. This is where it gets a little crazy because this is stuff that I'm just starting to kind of come. I have absolutely no evidence of this. It's just based on what I read.
Okay.
And also,
I'm interested to hear it. Go ahead.
It's actually quite interesting. I think it is. Water actually exists. I believe that when the rivers of living waters is spoken of in the word, there's a lot of on the surface, but there's a advanced understanding of this that God placed in this holy book created by men. He placed an advanced understanding of his word for his people to understand. Many chosen are few. They get this. Already existed. The Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters. From there, he started to create this simulation of reality for us.
Is this not reality?
Oh, it is. Very much so. Sense of do we have when we dream?
The reality is when we dream or when we're not dreaming?
We live in the physical reality. This is real.
Okay.
Self, I will bleed. Get up from my chair, physically over to this door, touch it, turn the doorknob and open my door. This is a physical reality. Reality, more complex than the video game would be. If you were that character in the video game, would be real to you.
Okay. All of that makes
in
good
front
sense.
of me.
All of that makes good sense to me. And I've argued with people like presuppositionalists, for example, who say that you can't tell if you're a brain in a vat. Well, even if this reality isn't really real, all of the rules imposed by this reality still apply to me. And if I see evidence of something, if I see a trail of footprints in this illusory matrix-like reality, well, I still know that those footprints were created by someone else within that illusory reality that walked there. So evidence still means something. So exactly. So we're on a ball there. So if we have a disk, one of the problems that I had with science fiction, for example, let's take a look at Star Wars. Star Wars, these guys are walking around in a spaceship. Now, if they walk outside that spaceship, suddenly they're weightless. But when they're on the Millennium Falcon, they can walk all over. There's basically a circle, right? So that's the same thing as what we're talking about with the Earth. The Millennium Falcon is a circle. They're all walking around within that circle. They have gravity until they set foot outside. And then they don't have gravity. How does that work? I'm sorry, there was a problem with the sound. I didn't hear the whole sentence.
Gravity does not exist.
Gravity does not exist.
Does not.
Can you say that again, please? Because
I believe gravity does not.
There's a lag in your audio, and I don't know which side it's on, but I didn't hear the whole sentence. Say again.
I do not. Gravity exists based off of my own observations. And with scientists, gravity, how it's they just have understanding of impact, whereas it was a theory, but now it seems to be a fact.
Okay, so I'm not hearing everything. There's a terrible problem on the audio, and I was hoping that we could eliminate that by closing other programs, and I don't know what's causing it. But did I hear you say that you do not believe that gravity exists?
Sir.
Okay.
I don't see it.
You don't see gravity existing?
No, sir.
How then are we on this disk-like world, the same way that the occupants of the Millennium Falcon are on this disk-like spaceship? They walk around, they drop something, it falls to the floor. What do you call that if not gravity?
I call it weight.
What is?
If we were lighter than air, we would definitely.
If we're lighter than air.
Let's take. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. So go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about first thing that comes to my mind is helium is lighter than air, so it takes off regardless of how much the basket weighs. The balloon actually weighs, or the occupants of the balloon. It's lighter than air. it's going to go up. Weight actually keeps everything to the ground.
So what is weight if not a demonstration of gravity?
Actually just a demonstration of how heavy something is compared to being light as air.
Okay, so
it just proves that something's heavy or has a weight to it.
So we have air, and then we have like the components of that. I mean, like hydrogen is going to be lighter than helium, and helium is lighter than oxygen. But each of these things has a weight.
Yes, sir.
So the weight, what weight is the gravitational pull of something. So the only reason that something has weight is because of gravity. So how does something have weight if there is no gravity?
Because they're tricky. I don't have all the answers.
Okay.
Created in a way to actually.
You don't have to have all the answers, so don't feel pressured about that. I just want you to be able to examine this, and if you don't have an answer, it doesn't mean everything collapses because you don't have that one.
Well, the weight of something, let's say, was a weight. The way that it is seen is based upon how much it weighs. Well, those things were giving a weight in order for it to work. It's designed to work or programmed to work. Another.
Okay.
Is actually designed to work according to its own program or specification. And that's why the weight is there. To me, that's what it means. It doesn't show that gravity is there.
Okay, and that's fine.
I just don't see it.
I'm sure some people will argue that gravity is the only way that weight could be there, but if we were to build a successful interplanetary spaceship, the idea that I would propose is, sometimes we've seen, like in 2001 Space Odyssey, you have that large wheel like space station. Well, rather than making it a single like 10-speed tire, why not make that like a can so that you maximize the amount of space, but the can is still spinning so that the people end up living on this outside edge of that, or actually on the inside edge of that can. And as it spins, the centrifugal, or actually centripetal force, would act exactly the same way as gravity does in most respects.
Right.
So if you're in a bicycle, for example, I mean, if you're pedaling one axis, you're actually going to be heavier than if you're pedaling the other axis, where you're going to be lighter. This is one of the few differences. But in effect, you would have a simulation of gravity. Now, gravity is the idea that all matter attracts all other matter, that everything has a draw to it. And if you're going to replace gravity, then you have to come up with something else. Is it like the centrifugal force thing, or if some people have proposed acceleration as a means? But what is the method you propose for why things have weight?
The method that I propose is things have weight is because we actually need plane itself. We don't need weight for any. I don't think that we need weight for anything. It's not something that we should actually be looking at in regards to this flat Earth that we're on and how we're able to stay here. I think gravity is a way for people to kind of explain the things that they don't want to actually kind of go into, because it goes against social norms, and you could definitely come out looking like a crazy person.
Can you give me an example of one of these things that people would not want to explain? I mean, if the Earth is in fact flat and has always been flat, where did the idea come from to say that it was round?
I believe that that is actually coming from the church itself. The church has manipulate the truth in a way to fit what they would want to be their situation. The church has out of our ancient knowledge stored away. The church has been manipulating people in a way to where on there and how they believe and what they say is actually the gospel truth. It started because they needed a way to get people away from not the God in the sense of how they portray God to be, in that sense, knowledge of God and knowing him personally, they have corrupted that and changed that. We have atheists.
All right. Well. Thank you for bringing that up. But you know, in the one and only book that I've written so far, I do have a number of citations from early church fathers from, say, the 4th and 5th centuries, and a little bit later, I think. As a matter of fact, you know, the church held on to until Columbus. I mean, although there were scholars who held that the world was a sphere for centuries before, even before the Bible was written, they were already scholars who were saying that the Earth was a sphere. But the church authors from antiquity through the Middle Ages held that it was a flat disk. As a matter of fact, there was one author, I wish I'd thought to have some notes on this, who described people who he called the antipodes, the people that he could not imagine who must live on the other side of the world. And he still thought that the world was a disk, and that anybody that lived on the other side of this disk would be separate from the people on this side of the disk. And so the people on that side of the disk must have their own Jesus and their own flood. And you know, obviously if gravity goes in the opposite direction, then they would have to, you know, they would have to have their own flood and everything. So this is the way the early church fathers were describing the world. And even right up into Hieronymus Bosch, my favorite artist of the Middle Ages, or the Renaissance rather, because wow, was that guy screwed up in the head. Have you ever seen his artwork? It's bizarre. He makes great heavy metal album cover art. You know, is all I'm going to say.
Seen it. Oh yes, sir.
But he was a monk in the time of Columbus, and he depicted in his artwork, he depicted the Earth as a disc in the concavity of a crystal dome that you could see through. That, you know, of course, it has everything inside it, the sun and the moon and everything. And the only thing that is outside of that disk was God and heaven, much as you described. So why would the church go from always promoting a flat Earth when the whole rest of the academic world is saying, no, the Earth is a sphere, and then right up until Columbus, they hold this position, and then they change their mind? Do you have an explanation for that? And you don't have to. I'm just asking if you do.
The explanation for that different ways for people in order to influence people it would like to. In order to get people to be influenced this way, you have to make sure that what you're saying itself in the way to actually start lose their senses, so to speak. They become desensitized to what they can actually see versus what they believe has wholly divinity them the truth, and they're standing right in front of them. So I think that they started manipulating a word in a way to where people were able to believe anything that they were putting out, regardless if it contradicted what people or their ancestor believed, that their culture is representing, or anything like that. So I believe that as the world was opening, they saw an opportunity to, so to speak, of the minds and the imaginations of people, because their story is amazing. It's just that it has so many discrepancies.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that would, I mean, if the Earth is this flat disk, and that obviously makes it distinct from all the other planets, um, yeah, the worlds we were just talking about, and all the the 8 or 9, however you want to measure them, planets of our solar system, to say nothing of all of the other
Hmm.
solar systems within this galaxy, to say nothing of all the other galaxies. If I've met people, I mean, there are people in my own family, and this is not a joke, who believe that the Earth is not who believed, they're not alive anymore, but I met people in my own family who believed that the Earth was not only the center of the universe, which, of course, in my perspective, it cannot possibly be, but that it was also the biggest thing in the universe, that the Earth is bigger than the sun, bigger
Center
than Jupiter, bigger than everything.
even science, because of how they measured the Earth. So the sun is so much bigger than the Earth. You know, photo. Um, Center of this believe in the universe is much though, like the whole universe. The Earth is universe. I don't much. I, there are other planets. I don't believe that there are wandering stars that science uses kind of give the idea that the Earth is moving, when really those are the only stars or so-called wandering stars that actually move. Nothing else in our night sky moves. Move.
All
I
right,
have
so
a request about the sound. I don't know if this is going to help, but on your mic settings, I've moved it in the Google Hangouts up, but can you check your physical mic settings, where your mic is in the computer itself, and turn the volume up? And
so my volume is down.
yeah,
Okay, I'll
and
try to be more conscious of that. Talk more directly into the microphone if that helps.
a second thing, perhaps our guest, they said maybe if you move your mic a little bit away from your mouth, maybe it's brushing
Oh yeah,
against your mouth when you're talking.
that would
And
make sense too.
it's okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
And also, perhaps you're cutting in and out, maybe because some bandwidth issues. You might consider turning your camera off and leaving your mic on, and that might use less bandwidth. Um, that's the only thing they've come up with so far.
Yeah, much as I would like to show you on video, she's right. If there's an audio issue, audio matters more than video does. So I can see a point there. You are cutting out quite a bit. So I wasn't able to follow everything that you just said, and I'm going to try to remember everything that you just said that I could make out. You said that there were other planets, but I didn't get to how they were different than the Earth. You said something about moving stars, but you said all the other stars do not move. Can I just to clarify? Do you accept the existence of the Milky Way galaxy?
No, I do not.
Okay. So what would you call the swash of stars that have, and I'm guessing that you haven't seen any astronomical photographs of this, because there has been some time lapse photography that can really highly resolve what the Milky Way galaxy looks like in its entirety. But how would you explain what that is?
I would have. What that is, what is actually in our night sky. There. It's being taken by a high altitude telescope, Hubble, or whatever, taking these pictures in detail. I do believe that those pictures are real. The thing that I don't believe is what they're saying it is and how it fits into the heliocentric model that they would have us believe.
Okay, so
These
you're
are real.
saying
They doctor it up and make it look really nice.
okay. So you accept that there is a Hubble telescope.
I accept the scope.
Okay. So can the Hubble telescope take a picture of the Earth and see both Europe and Australia at the same time?
What was the question?
Can the Hubble telescope focus on the Earth, take a picture of the Earth from space, and see both Australia and Europe at the same time?
They should look different. They should be able to. If they should be able to take a picture of both.
Can you offer any suspicion as to why they have not ever done that?
If they 17-hour flight you were
Okay,
that's just one kind of example. You mentioned earlier that you had a 17-hour flight when you went to not Dubai.
It was Dubai, yeah.
It was Dubai. Really take a look from the very top. You'll actually see how everything fits. That was true. The UN logo or any of the logos for the national world government, they wouldn't have the same. I found that interesting as I started looking into, because I've seen the logo plenty of times. It just never wasn't.
So when you look at the polar projection, when you look at the polar projection, you're saying that is the literal shape, that's what the map of the Earth would actually look like.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we send a Hubble into space, how does it get through the firmament?
Can't leave the firmament.
It's still in the firmament?
Leave it. You can't go anywhere. Where?
How did we get the Hubble up there? If it can look back and see the entirety of the Earth. If the Earth is a disk, and the firmament is a hemispherical crystal dome on top of that disk, then if you're able to get where the Hubble telescope can take a picture of the entirety of the Earth, then it has to be outside of that firmament, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure of the capabilities of the Hubble telescope actually look and see everything that it can see.
Okay.
If you're higher enough, should be nothing. There's no space.
Okay, so I want you to say that again because of audio issues. If you're high enough, something.
If you're high enough, you should be able to see a great distance. You should be able to connect cities. You should be able to connect land masses and see.
Can you estimate?
They'll never.
Can you estimate, or can anybody estimate how high you would have to be in order to see the outback and the Himalayas at the same time?
Wow. I believe that somebody could very possibly calculate that for us.
We mentioned the trip I took to Dubai, and
yes,
I want to talk about that for just a moment because I've actually got an image of that, if I can remember where it is. All right, and I'm going to share my screen once again. And I thought this was fascinating because you guys are familiar with Google Maps. I mean, everybody's familiar with Google Maps, right? We all use Google Maps. I use Google Map, and I drew a line from Dallas, where I live, to Dubai. And that straight line on Google Maps had me crossing North Africa. But as I'm flying to Dubai, I discover I'm looking at Spain. I'm not looking at Africa. I'm looking at Spain. How am I looking at Spain? Coincidentally, my daughter was in the Navy and she was stationed in Spain. So I was actually flying over my daughter. And this is one of the things that I noticed about that. And then we flew over Italy. And so I realized all of the things that I'd seen, even coming out of the United States, the things that we saw before we left the United States until we come across Europe, and I can actually recognize features of Europe. I drew this arc. Now on Google Maps, if I drew exactly what I had flown over, it would be a curved line. I know airlines do not fly in curved lines, but there's a website on, let's see, what is it called? Well, Rotate the World, and I don't remember what their website is, but there's a virtual interactive globe where you can actually roll the globe over and get the shortest distances between locations. And I rolled the globe over, as we say, and I was able to draw a straight line from Dallas to Dubai, and it actually did cover the exact places that I'd been to. And I'm going to try to share my screen once again. All right, so here. No, that's not it. Let me get the right flight. Where was it? There we go. So this going from Dallas to Dubai, and these are rough estimates because I don't have the exact pinpoint accuracy on these, but this is essentially what I flew over. This is a little. We actually no, this is not going over Spain, so I needed to roll the world a little bit more that way. It's not precise. When you get on this website, you'll see that there's ways that you can roll it over, and I obviously didn't roll this over exactly correct to get that straight line there, but it's essentially right. I go over England here. I did not, to my memory, go over England, maybe the lowest corner of it. I can't really remember, but I know I went over. No, that couldn't have been right either. I've gone over Spain and I went over Italy. But on the flat Earth, on the map that you're talking about, I think I've got an example of that here. Yes, and hopefully everybody can see this. Now, had I flown direct from Dallas to Dubai on the flat Earth map, the first thing I would have crossed over would be Canada and Greenland. Now, I've flown over Greenland, a number of times. I go to Iceland quite often, so I've flown over Greenland a number of times. I know what it looks like. I did not fly over Greenland on my way to Dubai. I flew over.
And that lets me know.
Yeah.
Lets me know that this is wrong. This is not the right map.
This is on the polar
right.
projection.
If you were,
this is the map that the UN uses.
That the UN uses is not a true representation of what is actually out there. The map that they used is based off of Earth's maps of the Earth that was ever created. It's not to say that is the true representation of the flat Earth model itself.
Okay, is there a map that I can look up that is the true representation of the Earth itself?
Well, that is not what I think it actually looks like. That looks weird.
Okay. Well, yeah, I downloaded a polar projection of the entire world, set up as it were done by Google Maps. And there are, fortunately, because we live in the age of computers, there's ways of rendering these to accommodate for all these changes and distortions. I also, and I think I'm still screen sharing. Maybe I shouldn't screen share, so I'm going to close that for a moment. All right.
Because it's Google Map is why they're showing it like that. It's because it's Google. Pass off anything because there's no way to prove what I'm saying or anything. But I do believe that there are agencies, so to speak, in place.
There are agencies in place
to information as it can be. Breaking through the programming, very hard to do because I have been learning this stuff since I was a kid. Nothing that I wanted more advancements going into space as I was growing up. It was really kind of hard for me to kind of accept these things, honestly. So I'm not, when I say that there's a question that I'm commonly asked is, from this? Well, the world will benefit from this because they have people who are undecided. The governments of the world know it's in the Arctic because they've signed a treaty saying that, hey, nobody can come out here. Nobody can mine out here. Nobody can live out here.
I'm confused with that
for
because
an
one of my friends has been to the Antarctic, and I
right. Yeah, you can go.
Arctic.
You can go. Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
Please go. It's beautiful out there. But to actually explore the Arctic and go on an expedition unguided by someone who's not military or someone who doesn't, I believe that's impossible. Mr. Henry Worsley.
Go ahead.
Mr. Henry Worsley was one of the recent explorers to try to go through Antarctica. He actually died. The thing is that he's in this seasoned explorer, but under mysterious conditions, he ended up. So to me, it could be harsh conditions. Of course, that those things could be explained away, but to me, it's just a little suspicious to me.
Okay. So do you accept or reject? Because I mean, earlier you said that the polar projection you accepted as the correct map of the Earth, and now you're saying it's not that. I need to know what the correct map of the Earth is. I've seen a number of other flat Earth videos where they said the polar projection was the actual true, in fact, projection. But if there's a different one,
if there's something where is getting confused. The reason why I say that is because there's only one north. Mm-hmm. No matter where you go on the Earth, if you go south, you're going to run into ice. True north. Mm-hmm. That north is pretty close to where you'll be going on your vacation.
Mm-hmm. And if we can talk
that
about
map,
that for just a moment.
Yes.
Next week I'm going to be in Iceland, as I said, my favorite country. I love going. I've never yet seen the Northern Lights with my own eyes, but most of the people in my family, ironically, have. My son has seen the Northern Lights in a different location. My daughter landed in Iceland for a minute and sent me a text message with a picture that she took with her phone, saying that the Northern Lights are spectacular. But I keep missing it. We went to Australia. And I was on the beach in Melbourne, and mm-hmm. we meant to go to Tasmania as part of that tour, but I couldn't logistically work it in. And I was frustrated at that. So there we're at the beach in Melbourne, and somebody sends me a text message from Hobart, Tasmania, which is the most beautiful display of the Southern Lights, the Aurora Australis. That and they sent me this image, and I'm like, it's 200 miles that way, and I couldn't have made the trip. So can you offer? I mean, you accept that the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights both occur, right?
Yes, they do. You can't doubt that it happens.
Okay. How would you
beautiful display?
How would you explain either one?
I would explain the phenomenon as there's two ways to explain it. What science believes, or there's a few theories that science throws out there as to what the Northern Lights or the Southern Lights are.
And that explanation, by the way, just for people who don't know, if the Earth is a globe, we have a liquid core. This generates a magnetosphere, so we have a polarity, so that the Earth is rather like a magnet. You have the mm-hmm. North Pole, the South Pole, and they both generate this energy that reverberates in a circular pattern like this through the poles. And so we have Northern Lights, we have Southern Lights. But in a flat Earth model, obviously, none of that exists.
Because the lights... Because of how the light is actually being... I don't want to say released. How the... Actually... Well, I guess coming down from where they're coming from, the way that the poles are, the way that the North is set up it's set up in a way to where only those places are able to see them the way that they are.
Okay.
A
I got another
region in order
question.
to see it.
I got another question then. Here in the northern hemisphere, we are, if you believe in a northern hemisphere, we have a Big Dipper, which I don't think is visible from Australia. I believe that me and some friends, we went to Australia. We had a hell of a time trying to find the most familiar constellation, the most easily recognized constellation that we have on this side of the world, and it didn't exist there. But what they did have
Wow.
there was the Southern Cross. And we can't see that in the Northern Hemisphere. So how can they see a constellation in the Southern Hemisphere that doesn't exist in the Northern Hemisphere if the Earth is flat?
We also have to take into account, like you mentioned, we have our dome. The stars are placed inside there, and it rotates. What we see where we are. What they see is what they see where they are. We're not going to see the same things because of the grand scope of the Earth itself. So we wouldn't see the same thing. We would see the same.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The one thing that we would see the same is the same side of the moon. Yeah. Let's say anywhere else on the Earth, you will always see the same side of the moon, no matter what. So I find that interesting.
Okay. Once again, the polar projection of the Earth. I mean, I asked at the beginning of this conversation. You said that was correct, and other flat earthers have said that that's correct. If I need to get another map of the Earth, I need to look for it now. Is the polar projection correct, or is it not? Is it adequate? Is it a fair representation of the flat Earth? To put the North Pole in the middle of the disk, is that a fair representation?
Yes.
Okay.
But for some reason, I didn't see that. I didn't see that on your map. It looked weird.
Okay, I will show the entire thing. Give me just a moment. I will share screen. I did download the polar projection, and I'll try to make that as big as possible. Hopefully, everybody can see the polar projection. You see everybody can recognize the familiar shapes of the United States, wherein suddenly South America is twice as big as North America. And Australia, you notice, is twice as wide as North America. And this is what the flat Earth people that were at least the leading voices in the flat Earth movement, if we shall call it that, that's what they identify as being the true proportions, according to this.
Yeah, that's
I've got
not
a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, you were going to say something and I interrupted. I'm terrible at that. Please forgive me.
It actually looks like they took the globe and just kind of took the picture and just kind of scrunched everything. It actually that looks really weird. I don't even recognize that.
Well, that's the image that the UN uses on their flag, and that other flat earthers have said is the accurate portrayal of the.
There is where right in the middle there should be land there, and for some reason there isn't.
Well, what you normally have in the middle is ice. You have the North Pole ice flows, which unfortunately we no longer have those. That's the Arctic Ocean, which hasn't been exposed by melted permafrost for millions of years, and suddenly it is.
What I'm saying is that there's land there. I don't know if yes, there is. There is land there. I don't know how. I cannot explain or provide any evidence. I cannot prove this to you.
Can you?
And that is the problem.
Any person ever?
Nope.
Who said there is land at the North Pole?
Not offhand. No.
Okay.
And that's I would have to get that information because I just there's land there.
Yeah. Have you ever been over the equator?
Arn?
What?
No, to be honest, I've never been anywhere.
Okay.
As far as that goes,
Can we,
Miss Ra.
all right, we've been talking about what he thinks about the spherical Earth or the flat Earth, and like what he just said, saying that there's land at the North Pole, and he doesn't know how, or he can't explain why. So, how are we going to know that there's land at the North Pole if you can't give us any kind of evidence that that's the case?
Are you reading one of the questions from the board or the
No,
chat room?
but there's
No, that's her question.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Well, this is what my whole thing is that nothing that I'm saying is definitive proof of anything.
Okay.
What I'm saying is all for me. I can't speak for a flat Earth group or a committee or a society. This is just all me.
And that's fine, and I'm completely happy with that.
Yeah, I just wish that I had the means to really prove that what they're saying is our north is all fabricated for us not to understand where we are. And and this map is really bothering me because anytime
intuition that tells you that everything we see from Google is made to fool us into thinking the Earth is a sphere.
I would say it's intuition for the stuff that I can't prove, but for the stuff that I can prove, as far as coming out of their mouth and saying that the pictures that we see are all doctored and CGI images. These things are documented that people can actually are courageous enough to challenge what they've been told, to actually go out and look for this information themselves. It's all there.
I just wanted to throw something out
to believe.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I talk too much.
No, I
talk too much. Go ahead.
I'm interviewing you. You're supposed to be the one talking. Everybody wants to hear your perspective more than they do mine. I just had a question about the equator. Now, on a globe model, we know that it is colder at the poles, both poles, just like we have the aurora, the northern lights and the southern lights. There are things that go on at the poles. And now we have with the flat Earth model, we've got something that doesn't make any sense because we don't have two poles anymore. So why are things cold at the North Pole and then super hot around the equator? What even is the equator anymore?
I don't believe I think the equator is a great way to kind of explain what can't really be explained. Gravity is. The equator is a way for just to add more confusion. Basic, simple.
Okay, so
anybody could go out and.
Are you suggesting that the equator exists in order to be confusing?
I do. Earth, I believe that the way that they present it, that it is definitely to be confusing.
I think
there's no science behind it. It's just, I don't think that it's the way that they say it is.
Okay, so like with gravity in the equator, it seems to me that you're saying that that people have made up the gravity in the equator to fool people that the Earth is round. Right? Is this what you're saying? And
yes.
Okay. So the question for us is, like, if the Earth is flat, most of us want to know that, if that's the truth. Now, how do you know this, and how can we know that gravity and the equator are made up? Like, is it going to be just you and your thinking, or you get where I'm going with this?
I understand the question completely. What I would say is that going off of what someone has said, that makes sense to me. much like everything that we all experience. We can either try to disprove it or that it's real. The one thing that I've done in the research that has gotten me to this point, have to have an open mind to accept that didn't know is not right, because when I look up, it doesn't make sense to me. Have an open mind to understand that if the equator is what they say it is, then it really challenges me to find out what's the truth. And that's a walk that I take every day. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out because, like I said, behind it, as far as how is it hotter there, or how, and it could be our ionosphere, it could be anything that's charged electrons, or from the, it could be anything that makes it hot there, and I'm not quite sure what that is. So I can't say that it's not true, or that it is true. I haven't been able to go through the data myself, or
I want to
experience or go through those things.
I want to share something else. I mean, I didn't say, and I told you when before we started the show that I was going to say this again, and I did not. And I feel
no, you're good.
I wanted to say that I thank you for coming on here, because I know how awkward that can be, for someone in your perspective. And so, sincere thank you for being. The second thing, we had mentioned about the Millennium Falcon. Remember that roughly circular shaped spaceship, and people walk around, and if you step outside, suddenly there's no gravity. This is going to be a really important question.
Yes.
Why do we have the appearance of gravity? Why do we have weight on this disk?
Quite sure. That's a really good question. That's one of the questions for the architect, so to speak. I'm not quite sure why he. That's an interesting design. I would say for sure.
Okay. Well, one of the explanations from other flat earthers is that the Earth is a disk that is constantly accelerating at 32 feet per second. So that so the reality of that is that it would be a matter of minutes before you'd exceed the speed of light. So
that's why it doesn't make sense.
Right, and that's why that doesn't make sense. So we can't be accelerating. And we can't be doing the centripetal force thing like the can that I was talking about. If you spin fast enough, you'll get the impression of weight. So if we have this disk, how do we have weight? I need to answer, or I need to ask. The other thing that I mentioned, I told you before I hit broadcast, I said that I only wanted to get 20 minutes from you if it was interesting. As long as we can keep it interesting, we'll go up to an hour. And then I said we normally don't exceed an hour unless it's really interesting. And I'm sorry to say I'm really interested. We are already over an hour, and I haven't even gotten, I think, to the good stuff yet. So
no, not even close.
Are you keen to continue?
Yes, let's keep going, please.
Right, thank you.
I'm gonna to the chat questions either.
Yes, exactly, and that's where I'm going next.
Let's take a break and take some chat questions.
Absolutely. All right. So, does he know that the moon is covered in microdust, therefore it wouldn't look like a heavy Earth dirt after an impact? If you I'm just going to throw these out there and have you field them or ignore them.
Yeah, that's in regards to, I believe, the craters on the Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
My thing is, we're told something. It's always so fantastic. Problem I have, even let's say, sir. Fantastic. Everything is so, and to me, when I hear stuff about microdust, I am instantly torn, because moon even look like something we can land on. Because when I walk outside in my front yard, when I wake up in the morning, I could look up in the sky and the moon is transparent. Behind the moon is a solid object.
Okay, the explanation for that is that the reason the sky is blue is because you're looking through the atmosphere, and if you're talking about early in the morning when the sun is coming up, or from our perspective when the sun is coming up, because of course where the Earth is actually rotating, then you have the sun refracted through the atmosphere, which tints everything blue, which would make the moon look transparent.
Okay.
Wow.
Here.
Answer.
That was a question from JB Ostrich, but he skipped.
JB, thank you.
Okay. Pabs question. Pabs is love. So somebody, are we talking about Pabst beer? I don't know about that. But,
Can't be. Nobody loves Pabst beer.
What's his opinion on the Coriolis effect? Is the question.
Remember the Coriolis, that effect is.
Okay, I can go get a picture of it. But what it is wind spins in a certain direction, wind currents on the Earth, because in part due to rotation, and of course because it's round. The Earth is a sphere. I can go get a picture of it. Just saying.
Yeah, because
the reason that I skipped that one was because we had just talked about the Aurora Borealis in Australis, and I thought, okay, that didn't really go anywhere, so the Coriolis effect was going to probably result in the same answer. This is honestly the reason I didn't ask that one. While Alondra is researching that one, I will look at the next one on the list, because we do have a few questions here, and again, I appreciate you being on to talk about them.
Can you say
my bad, guys,
when you ask the question?
All right. Well, somebody that may be called, it looks like not your business. It says,
all right.
Yeah, ask him to, do you believe NASA created a fake sun?
That they created a fake sun. I do. With the solar flares and the sunspots, it's magnificent.
Can you not get a telescope and lenses to refract and minimize and look at these things yourself?
Believe that you can, but the way that NASA is showing these things, I don't believe that it's actually like that at all.
How can it not be that way if you can see it for yourself?
Because what happens is when we're being told the truth of a fantastic story, we're being told the truth hidden or make everything seem so much greater than what it is. The sun is not going to put out a solar flare that's going to cause an EMP effect that's going to cause airplanes to fall out the sky. That's going to happen.
Has anyone
proof
said
of that?
Has anyone ever said that the sun would cause this effect and that it caused any airplanes?
Oh, yes.
To fall out of I don't remember any explanation of. I mean, any idea how much air traffic we have out there? I mean, if all the planes fell out of the sky at once,
I know, but this is what they tell us. This is something that can be researched because this was said.
When has anybody ever said this?
I want to say it was a couple. I've only been in Arizona for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Within the 4 years, there was a major event. Solar flares could cause planes to fall out the sky. It could cause an EMP type effect. And this is something that
if you're watching, what's that guy's name that always talks like this? Like InfoWars. Yeah, that guy. Maybe if you're listening to him.
No,
I've never heard anybody say that all the airplanes would fall out of the sky. I've heard that solar flares.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, that solar flares could disrupt cell phone activity. But that's about the extent of it.
This is the Coriolis effect. The rotation of the Earth affects wind currents, and they go in
Oh,
different directions in the northern and southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
okay. So now I know what. Now I remember the problem with the Coriolis effect is that science is telling us that we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. What that is that if we're moving 1,000, then that means that revolving around us is moving at a speed as well. It's supposed to
Unless
be
space is
gravity.
unless space is a virtual vacuum.
We could talk about the vacuum in a moment because that doesn't even make sense with jet propulsion and things like that. If we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, 67,000 miles an hour, something else is moving. We're rotating in our solar system at a speed, and our solar system is moving through the galaxy at a certain speed. I have no proof of this at all.
Okay.
I just don't.
What do you say?
The numbers are fantastic, though.
Okay, yeah. I want to ask you because I know that it's not in the question. We'll get back to these questions in the sideline at the moment, but I want to know what you're thinking about when we get. Do you accept that you at a certain altitude beyond the Earth you no longer have atmosphere?
Yes.
Okay, so we get less and less atmospheric pressure. The air is thinner and thinner and thinner until it isn't there anymore at all.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So what was it you were talking about? How you finally get to a point where there's no atmosphere at all. We get to this virtual vacuum, and you said that doesn't make any sense. How does that not make sense?
Well, that in regards to space, the way that NASA tells us is that space is a vacuum. The problem I have with that is that between the movies and what they're saying is that jet propulsion is supposed to work. And if you're in a vacuum, scientists and people who are just curious have done experiments by creating their own vacuums and are trying to ignite, things inside the vacuum to see if propulsion will work, and it doesn't.
Okay, well, nope. To the best of my knowledge, and I know an awful lot of scientists, I mean, nobody's ever proposed that jet propulsion could work in space. Jet propulsion depends on atmosphere. They use rockets in space.
Rockets with the boosters.
Yeah, because the law is that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you have a focused explosion that way, that's going to cause force that way, and so that it doesn't matter that that it is a vacuum, it's still going to go that way if the explosion pointed that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. Flat Earth, round Earth, rockets still move in space if they can get through the firmament.
If they can't, if they could.
So
yeah,
where?
That's definitely.
I've got so many questions. Okay, and I'm trying.
Oh yeah, no.
I want to do the fire hose of questions because I've got so many. But I'm gonna stick with what we've got already posted from other viewers, and I'm gonna try to get back into numeric order, or I will miss things. Let me see. And one thing about the whole fake sun thing, we went to a stargazing party, and somebody had brought out this ridiculously enormous and stupidly expensive telescope because this guy is the uber nerd, right? I mean, so we've all looked through telescopes, but nobody has ever looked through a $4,000 telescope that's 6 feet wide. Who buys these things? But I looked through this telescope and I could actually see the moons of Saturn, which I thought was amazing. That I'm actually I'm not only seeing the rings of Saturn, I'm looking at the moons of Saturn. Two of them. You can only see 2 of those moons, but it was still, that's what you get for a stupidly expensive telescope like that. If the Earth is only, I mean, what is the diameter? So it was something like 7,800 miles, right?
Yeah.
That's approximately the right size for the Earth. Well, why do we have to have this ridiculously powerful telescope to see Saturn? Is Saturn on the inside of the concavity of the firmament, or is it beyond that?
It's on the inside of it.
Why would we have this? How big is Saturn?
I don't know. But only that NASA has a speculation of the diameter of it.
Okay.
For speculation of atmosphere.
All right. So if the Earth is a disk, let's say rounded out 8,000 miles in diameter, and it's within this hemispherical concavity, which is the firmament, which, of course, now that's 4,000 miles at maximum altitude. So Saturn has to be within that 4,000 miles, right? If it's within the concavity, then it can't be more than 4,000 miles away. Now, Saturn, according to scientists, and what do they know, say that Saturn is a hell of a lot bigger than the Earth is. What?
Right.
Okay, so Saturn is,
yeah. Go ahead.
Saturn is, according to scientists, Saturn is a way lots bigger than the Earth is, so it couldn't possibly fit in that space between the Earth, the disk world, and the firmament.
Yeah,
so how
you're right.
do we have Saturn? How is Saturn a sphere?
But that's the whole thing. This is just going to cause a whole bunch of questions. Lying. What science is telling you about the diameter of Saturn or any of the other wandering stars, you're not going to be able to understand the firmament. You're putting something so big into something that it's not that deep. That's what I'm saying about how basic these things, this understanding is. It's not something so grand in the sense of how NASA and science is making things. Saturn is not as big as they say it is. They have no idea how big Saturn is. And all of it is just a theory based on what they believe it to be true, because they have no way of measuring these things.
Do you accept that we sent probes to Saturn?
Nope.
Even though you say Saturn is inside our concavity, and so even if and I realize, at 8,000 miles or 7,800 mile diameter for the Earth, and I really wish I had done this in the metric system when I was learning all of these things, but I didn't realize how backward my own country was. So I really should have done it metric. But anyway, that's what I learned. I learned it in miles, and now I've got to undo everything so I can catch up with the rest of the world. So if it is a flat disk, it's actually going to be much bigger than that.
A lot bigger.
So let's reasonably, let's say twice as big. So 16,000 miles. But even if that, then it's still 8,000 miles to the top of the firmament, which means that Saturn is still within inside that 8,000 miles. Are you saying we can't get a probe 8,000 miles?
I'm trying to say that you can take pictures from inside because of how we're able to see inside from the inside the dome. You can take pictures inside, but you can't go there.
Okay. We have a guy, there's a guy now who claims to be a flat earther who's building a homemade rocket.
Oh, cool.
To kill himself with. And he's expecting, that's not cool. He's expecting to go up high enough to verify the flat Earth. Now I'm thinking that if you can't get the Hubble Space Telescope high enough to take a picture of the entirety of the flat Earth, if that can't do it, then what is Mr. DUI, fix-it shop homemade rocket ship going to do to prove that the Earth is? How do we prove which it is?
That's the thing about the Earth being flat to begin with. When we're looking at this age of man that we're in, that's why I keep saying things are just really basic. I saw a question come up from someone, I don't know if I could do this, asking me why I don't try to find evidence instead of believing in other people.
Are you able to see the chat at the same time?
I don't know. I think she did it. I'm not quite sure, but it popped up there.
I put the questions in the chat.
Okay, good.
So The one thing that I do is that you have to be able to discern what is the truth for yourself. All of this is based off of what I've seen, the evidence that I hold to be true for myself. And that's what I want to really make sure that people understand. It's not that I have any particular truth to prove anything definitively. It's all based upon the perception of the person who's willing to challenge what they think they've been told. And that is the biggest part of this. That was the biggest part for me. That's how I'm able to sit here today, because for some reason, the powers that be, so to speak, to say that, felt like I needed to do this, felt like I needed to get this part of what I've learned so far out.
Okay, I want to say one other thing is that I've had a very, 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 very cynical view of religious believers forever, convinced that all of them are deliberately lying, that there's just not a way that anybody could believe this and be sincere about it. And I've encountered enough people who have verifiably deliberately lied to me that it has only made that position more concrete.
Of course.
I don't have that position with you. I mean, I was convinced firmly that there is not a single person, could not be a single person on this planet who honestly believes that the earth is flat, that there's just no way that anybody could believe that. And I'm actually believe that you believe that, which is encouraging to me, because it means that maybe you can be reasoned with.
I can be reasoned with.
Okay. Lalandra, I'm going to need to grab something real quick. And I'm going to ask you if you would, since you're here. I didn't expect my wife to be. I said earlier that it would just be you and me on camera, and then my wife showed up, and I didn't know she was going to be on camera. But this is the way that she's relaying the questions from the chat room.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Yeah, Lalandra, would you mind fielding a few more of these questions while I run out, and I'll be right back.
Okay, we're on question number 4 from Celtic Warrior. Ask him, why does the sky seem to move in a different direction depending on which hemisphere you're at?
I want to could you read the question again? I want to make sure I understand it.
Sure. Why does the sky seem to move in a different direction depending what hemisphere you're at? So, like, when you're in the northern hemisphere, you see different constellations, right? Than the southern.
Right. Correct.
Because the sky, the star constellations change during the course of the night, right? But they change differently in different parts of the world, right?
They do, and there is a reason for that.
Okay. Why?
The reason, in my opinion, the reason for that is, I want us to try to look at the Earth in the mindset of a 3D model, so to speak, simply because I think that we're trying to understand it in the scale of 2D. If you take
is it flatter, 2D?
Oh no, not at all.
But it's flat.
The Earth,
2 dimensions.
No, that's why I wanted to call it, because it's not 2-dimensional, because we have mountains, obviously. So it's just a matter of the surface is flat.
Okay,
the
surface is flat. All right.
Just the surface is flat. And I think that's where the questions are coming from, thinking that it is flat 2D. It really isn't. It's all around us in a circle. The firmament is all around us. The night sky rotates the way that it does.
Okay.
You're going to see, depending on where you are and the way the sky is rotating, you're always going to see, if it looks like it's going a different direction, it's because of where you are in perception, and it has to do with the firmament itself and how we perceive what we are from the distance that we are on the ground in regards to how is at the point of Earth, because it has levels of elevation, of course. you are is also going to depend on a lot of factors. Let's say I could say, so I can see how.
Uh-oh. He stuck there. A lag.
Yeah. Got a bit of lag.
Yes.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How far have you gotten through your questions, Lalandra? Because we
got to the point where we're talking about why does the sky seem to move in different directions depending on where you're at, like in different hemispheres, right? And he says, I believe that the firmament is moving around the flat disk that he says is surrounding it, and this is why you're getting different perspectives in different parts of the world.
You'll notice that my wife has a spherical globe depiction behind her, along with a star chart, because she's part of the conspiracy.
Oh no! I mean, if that's the case, I was a part of the conspiracy myself, because I was pushing space science, probes into deep space, pictures coming back. I was eating this stuff up, guys. It was amazing to me.
I don't feel that I'm eating anything up, but I feel that you are. I feel that you bought into something that can be demonstrably disproved. And I'd like to see how we can do that. For example, the firmament. How do we verify that it exists, or how do we verify that it does not exist?
Well, a part of that is going to come with a whole conspiracy theorist type situation. Our government and the governments around the world have been compiling information about the firmament because they know it exists. The thing that they've been doing, as far as what they say our satellites are, which they're 17,000 or more in space that we never even see collide, let alone run into our space station. There's no pictures of the Earth surrounded by satellites. What they've been doing is actually bouncing signals off of the dome and calling it satellite internet. What they've been doing is bouncing radio signals off of the dome, and they've been doing it since the late 40s, early 50s, when the governments of the world, the people who stand, because the documentation from sources that got me to start looking into the information myself. I can hear somebody say something and discern for myself whether I believe them or not.
How do you know if you're wrong about what you hear? Like all of us, have to have some kind of way to decide what's right and wrong when we listen to other people.
We were made that way for a reason. The way that I discern what is true or not is what I feel inside me. Actually go out and observe for myself. If I need to read something or do some more research, I'll definitely do it, because I don't want to be sure that if anyone were to ask me, that I actually have information for them, that they can go their own opinion about themselves. Really about a lot of things, deciding things for myself, with the understanding of science and coming from growing up with this stuff. It's really still quite amazing to me how much stuff I was actually getting wrong.
Okay, what if someone were to tell you that they have a feeling that the Earth is a sphere? How could you convince them that they are wrong about that?
I would convince them to gather any information that they feel is true to what they believe about the world being round. And then I would challenge them. try to find information that can disprove the world being round, and vice versa. I think that will allow people to actually gain a better understanding of both sides and can come up with a conclusion themselves instead of just believing what someone is saying, because
Right.
typically people are just going to take what people say because they're more educated, or I could never find this information myself, so I just have to believe the people that supposedly have done these things. So I challenge people to go out and actually try to disprove what you believe. And I think that in the middle of that, you're going to find truth. And that truth is going to be for you.
A lot of times with experiments, you don't have to rely on being able to interpret what other people say. There are simple things that you can do yourself to verify the shape of the Earth, right? Like, you've never flown in a plane, right?
I have flown in a plane, but I've also seen footage from planes, which, I mean, I don't know if that counts, but...
That counts. So why is there curvature on the horizon from a plane?
Well, even the word horizon itself means flat. So I'm not quite sure.
That's interesting, but have you noticed that it looks curved from a plane?
You can't actually see the curvature of the Earth from an airplane. It's not high enough.
Well,
what you see is the horizon line itself. And for our perception of vantage points and how far the human eye can see, it's going to look like it's kind of curving when it's really not.
I have another one to throw out there. I mean, but I'm inclined, before I get into my own questions, I want to be fair to the other people.
You look so serious, Mr. You look.
No, this is a weird thing. I've been trying to get a flat earther to come on the show for, I'm not kidding, for more than a year. I would say that it's probably been about 2 years now. And
that's incredible.
I've found all these like top channels. I've invited all these people. I figured they know who I am, but none of them would ever come on. And
amazing.
And you're the first one that would actually come on. So I'm ecstatic. I'm delighted. But the thing is, where I thought that this would be a relatively short conversation, there's just like, I mean, I can't stop with the questions and everything.
No, it's a lot.
It just throws more questions out, and there's a bunch of questions here, and we don't have unlimited time, and I'm sure you don't have unlimited time. So before I get to my last little points, I want to make sure that we get through all of the questions that are listed here, if we can. Lalandra, can we try to breeze through these as quickly as possible? Lalandra?
Here we go. All right, let's run the gauntlet.
Let's do it.
Number 6. From Deconverted Man. Please ask him if he watched any debunking flat Earth videos, and why would there be so much scientists who say the Earth is round. So that's kind of like what you were saying earlier on how you could get people to understand that the Earth is flat, to look for evidence that contradicts the spherical Earth. Have you watched any videos or any evidence that debunking the flat Earth is his question?
Well, the thing that this is how I would like to answer this question. I have spent my entire life indoctrinated into a spinning globe, the Earth, Moon, the solar system, another Earth beyond our solar system. I have been indoctrinated with this. Finding videos to debunk what a flat earther would typically research is actually quite comical to me, because to answer the question, I've watched videos to debunk the flat earth. There's guys out here who are adamant about making sure they do everything they can, any information that they can find, any experiment that they can use to show that the earth is round and that we're just a bunch of crazies out here. I've watched those videos, but it it doesn't change what I have experienced for myself. Experiences are never going to leave me, and no matter what I have come across, I can't find anyone or anything that can dissuade me back into the fold, so to speak. I just don't see it.
Go to the next question, Lalandra. We got to crank these out.
All right. Rogerio Silva, is Earth different from all other observable planets?
Earth is different from all observable planets because Earth isn't a planet. Earth is the ground that we have here. The planets are wandering stars. Oh man, here we go. So this is what planets are, or what we are told planets are, that they're planets. There's a story about the wandering stars that we have in our solar system. The story goes is that when the curtains were laid for us, there was a time where the Creator made these planets, what we know as Mercury, Uranus, Mars, Venus, the main ones that we have. He created them. I don't know why, but for some reason, come to God when he called them. So he told them that I am going to have you wander the sky for a time until I call you back. And that's the story behind the wandering stars that we have. And that's why. So
there's the other planets are stars?
The other planets are actually not a planetoid, spherical, like they would like to have us believe.
So why then
planet?
Why then when you look in a telescope you can see Jupiter and it isn't a star? It's a round sphere.
Oh, because he made them, and this is how when he made them, he made them with them distinguishable from everything else in the sky. They were made with a impression. He gave them free will to where they were able to go about and do what they want. So when we see them, much like we see the moon, they were created in a way. It was the creativeness of the Creator that made them look the way they look, because he wanted them to distinguishable from everything in the sky. Planned for them. They didn't. We don't see what God had in store in the night sky for us because they went against what they were told to do. But when we look at a microscope, to answer your question, a telescope. He created them with he has a mind to like create things a certain way, with such detail and intricacies, and that's what he did when he created those particular planets, we can call them.
But if they were stars, you'd have difficulty looking at them directly with a telescope.
But you don't, because of how special they are. They're very special. They were made different from everything else in the night sky for a reason, because he had a plan for them.
I know I want to get through all of everybody else's questions, but fuck it, it's mine.
But you got questions.
And one of the things I want to throw out there, and I don't know if anybody else has already covered this, but I mean, when you look at the stars, you say that the stars don't move, right? Well, okay, but the planets clearly do move, at least the planets within our solar system. And I'm going to guess that you're going to dismiss extra solar planets, right? Because I've already found I think, over 1,000 extra solar planets now. Do you?
Who has found this? Who's found this?
Oh, well, that would be part of Big Brother's conspiracy. So I guess
I don't. Well, I mean, you have to keep the thing going. You have to keep going further and further out. You have to make things so much more fantastic than the last thing that you found to show progression.
Was that what you thought when you accepted that the Earth was a sphere, and then it went around the sun, and that the sun was one of many stars, and that we're all part of a galaxy that is one of many galaxies? I mean, how do we observe all these galaxies, like at the Hubble Deep Field View? I mean, do other galaxies exist? You said this galaxy does not exist. So what is it that we're looking at when we have a good enough telescope to look at it?
What you're looking at is a creation of beauty and wonderment as it was meant to be for us. We're distracted by everything in front of us. The things that we take beauty in are not the things that are right in front of us. It's more other things. And that's just as a whole, not so much yourself or I mean,
looking at when we see a what looks like a spiral galaxy, or the various different configurations of galaxies, what are we looking at there?
I depending on the picture, because I believe that some of the pictures are real. They're just made to look colorful. I don't think that they're taking color pictures. NASA has admitted that they're actually adding the color to make it look more appealing to us. And this is documented. You can go in and actually.
Not exactly what the admission is. They do use false color images because we can't see gamma rays. So they.
Oh no! This is actually a picture of what they would say is a galaxy inside of that beautiful cluster of stars, and it's quite beautiful.
Are you aware that you've gone to black and white?
Yes.
Did you do that on purpose? Because I didn't notice when. Okay.
That is the sun going down in Arizona. This is all about to get.
How is the sun going down in Arizona?
There we go.
Different time that it is in Texas.
I am not sure, because there's times I've observed sunlight at like 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
When we went to Iceland, we went to Trondheim, Norway, the furthest north that I'd ever been in Norway. In both cases, we were hoping again to see the Northern Lights, and the sad thing was that we went, I think, in the month of May, in which the sun just like practically never went down. I mean, it was always a blue sky. There was a point where the sun would just barely dip below the horizon, but the sky would stay blue all night long. The sky stayed blue in both Iceland and in Norway. And where my dad worked, I mean, he worked at Point Barrow, Alaska, which is the furthest north that you can still be, closest you can get to the North Pole and still be on land. And he sent me pictures of at 3 o'clock in the morning, the sun's still up.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way it is when you're in the Arctic Circle. How would you explain that?
And better people than me have explanation. I'm gonna try to explain it. Sun is a lot smaller and closer to the Earth than we're led to believe. So on the flat Earth, because the sun and the moon are smaller, they actually rotate around us. Unfortunately, I would have to say, we have to kind of keep in mind what the creator said he made the sun and the moon for. He said it's only to tell time for seasons and to give order to night and day, is what he said. Nothing else at all. Rotating around us at the points where, depending on the season, the sun is closest to the inner part of it and moves a lot slower. As it goes around, it starts pulling back out, and it does this throughout the cycles that the Earth has in regards to solstices and things like that.
Okay.
Do you want to do some more questions?
Yes. Yeah. Please,
Okay.
Alondra, go with
Okay.
the other questions. What were we up to?
Number Sanders is asking, is there a chance he could be mistaken or fooled into these beliefs?
It is possible mistaken and fooled into the belief if I was not a person who the high discernment for BS.
Okay, I need to caution you there.
Okay.
I can prove that you have been fooled into this position. It'll take some time, but I can prove that. So
okay.
You want to be very cautious about saying whether you can't be fooled or not.
No, I'm going to say that I can discern whether what you're proving to me is actually something that I can take away from and see, because this is the thing. Okay. I know that there is a lot of things that I don't know, but what I do know, I know. Nobody can take that from me. What I actually believe that you can do for me is answer some questions that kind of fill in some blanks I may have, which ultimately is going to end up. So I don't think that what you were saying is going to prove anything about the Earth being round. I think that it's going to prove that there is don't know. But as far as the Earth being round, I will never believe that again because I don't have any proof of that.
I can give you proof of that, but it's obviously going to take some time because, as I said, we're closing in on 2 hours now.
That's a good talk,
and it is. It is, and I want to give you full credit for that because we're closing in on 2 hours, and I haven't even gotten to the meat yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, and I want to get through everybody else's question, and I'm just going to shut down my own.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask anymore. The only question I'm going to ask you.
You got one more.
We're really curious.
Are you interested in doing a second session of this? I mean, like a second
Of course.
Episode? That's outstanding. That's brilliant. I'm not going to ask anything more. I'm not going to present anything more. I'm going to let Alondra get through everybody else's questions, and I want to thank you, and I sincerely believe that you believe your position, and I was convinced wholeheartedly that it was not possible for anybody to be sincerely convinced, and I actually believe that you and sincerity means a hell of a lot to me.
I know it does. I know it does.
So, Alondra, please continue.
Number 9, intellect 1, 2, 3, dude. You place assertion on top of assertion. Where is your peer-reviewed scientific study containing evidence to support flat Earth? So he's asking, do you have a peer-reviewed evidence of the flat Earth?
I'm going to answer that question for him.
Cool.
He stated that he's basing this on his own perspective. We haven't discussed anything about scientific methodology or the requirements thereof, and I'm thinking, the wealth of that is going to have to be in a second episode. There's not a way that he could answer. I'm going to let. Okay.
Do you know what peer review is?
I'm sorry. What is what?
Peer review.
Peer review?
No, peer review.
PEE.
The
peer review.
Yeah, peer review is when a scientist proposes something. There are a number of rules, and that's what this question is really about. The rules. One of the rules is that when you propose something, you can't just say, "Well, maybe there's blah blah blah." You have to show evidence that there is blah blah blah. You can't just say, "Well, maybe." And you can't say, well, man, who knows? You've got to show.
Right.
You've got to show everything.
Exactly.
And then when you do that, other scientists who are not your friends have to, they are going to come in.
Have to disprove it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if they can't find anything wrong with what you've said, they will begrudgingly say, well, he may have a point.
Right.
And that's the cruel and cynical way that science works.
I do not have a peer review. As far as that goes, I have patience. I would have to say that this is, I talked to. This is pretty much just me, and simply because this goes against everything anybody has ever heard of, and you can't just start telling people this stuff.
Okay.
It's not just flat Earth. It's a lot deeper than that.
What?
Yeah, we'll cover some of that. It will at least
So-
we'll at least go
you
over
know.
the rules that
There-
they're talking about.
There have been people that are even scientists that are wrong. And one of the ways that science kind of like foolproof science is once you get you get your results, you publish your findings, and other scientists try to rip it apart. And if they can repeat your results, then everybody temporarily, until there's other evidence to the contrary, your finding stands. So like there's a difference between I know this and to be true, and then giving evidence for it, and then there's another level with science where other scientists come in and try and take it apart, or try to repeat repeat your findings. That's what peer review
Right.
is. Okay.
So the thing is that I'm not quite sure the ratio. Scientists who are saying the Earth is round, and you have scientists who are saying the Earth is flat.
I don't think we have scientists who are saying the Earth is flat.
Next time I am going to have some information for you, because it's not something that is across the board everyone believes. There's things that people are proving that go directly against the heliocentric model that we've all grown to love and know today. So
Okay,
I would like to be better prepared next time for that information, because there are scientists who are saying that.
you certainly will be, because we're
Yeah,
going to have to do
we will.
a separate episode, and you will be able to review this. As soon as I end this transmission, it'll go up on my channel, I think within 2 minutes or something like that. I think is
Okay.
YouTube's normal speed. I will include any links that refer to like the polar projection map versus the rotate the world virtual rendering that I was talking about. Other people can duplicate the way that I position the world, because I obviously did a haphazard job on my Dubai trip. I didn't even look at it very closely, because I had myself coming through France instead of Spain. I could have just turned it an increment more and it would have been straight. But yes, if you watch that, when we come back again, you will have more meat, and I'm sure that flat Earth people will be lobbying. Will present you with all kinds more data, and we will have an even more interesting show next time. Before we close this up, and we're going to have to close it up very, very quickly, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I got a 10-year-old that needs to eat.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say again that I appreciate you very much for coming on for this, and
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to agree on when we can do this again.
Okay, I could definitely I'll email you.
Very good, very good. Lalandra, try to run through these questions as fast as you can.
Okay. There's 4 more. Okay. Number 10. Adam Jacobs. If there's no gravity, how does the moon directly affect ocean tides on Earth?
I can't say that the moon doesn't affect tides on Earth. What I can say is that I believe the moon doesn't affect the tides the way that they say. simply because an observation to me would be if the moon is, so the moon is affecting the tides world all at the same time because of the gravity. Well, gravity is so intelligent that it can keep the oceans in underneath the world. Bird on its own weight can use its wings to lift itself and fly. Not only fly, but glide into the air. I don't see how that works. Gravity is just the moon to me doesn't affect the tides.
Okay.
Definitively, I just don't think it affects it the way that science is telling us.
Have you ever been to the ocean?
I actually moved from Arizona. I actually moved to Arizona from Florida. Jacksonville Beach is not one of the, actually a nice beach.
Have you noticed that at certain times the tide is high and certain times it's low?
Right, and I have observed that. The thing is, guys, is that I really want y'all to understand tides. I understand the gravity. I understand how the moon is supposed to be affecting the Earth's tides in regards to the gravitational pull. Everything is just so magically in harmony with each other as far as our solar system goes, and the magical glue, which is gravity. I understand that. I understand that what I was looking at was the understanding that, hey, a tide is coming in. The thing that bothers me is that the only way that I know to explain it is based off of somebody else's explanation of it. I don't even know if the results that they put up are true or not. I just have to go off some kind of blind faith that someone who has PhDs in front of their name no more, and I should just believe them. So
why do you think the tide coincides with the position of the moon then, if the moon is not affecting the tides?
I didn't say definitively that the moon does not affect the tides. I say that it may not affect the tides the way that science tells us. I could see the moon affecting the tides more than the moon affecting the waves of the waves of the Earth or something like that, like science is telling us.
Okay, I have copied the remaining questions. I don't think we're going to be able to get to them, but I want to make sure that we have a record of them, and we will
get them
begin
next
our
time
podcast with those. I know that you'll be better prepared for the next time that we do this. I want you to be
We wasn't
aware.
supposed to do this long, sir.
We were not. We were not. I told you it's never this interesting, and we could go on, and we need to go on. We need to do this again, and I want to express my sincere appreciation for you being on this podcast, especially since we're not paying you, and I very much appreciate it. But I want you to be prepared for the next episode. These are things that are going to come up. When you're going to talk about evidence for things, part of the evidence is you have to have a model. You have to have some kind of explanation for certain aspects. And other flat earthers are doubtless going to be filling you in information. I want you to be prepared when you come back that you could not account for the existence of gravity as an explanation of weight. You couldn't account for the existence of weight. What causes weight in your model? You couldn't account for the observations of Eratosthenes or Kepler, because Eratosthenes verified that the world was round around the time of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Kepler realized the motions of the planets only made sense in a heliocentric model. You couldn't account for the aurora borealis compared to the aurora australis. This is something you need to be prepared for next time. You couldn't account for Saturn, Miranda, Neptune, or any other world that we talked about, and when you watch this video again, you'll understand what I mean. You couldn't account for the equator versus polar conditions at both poles. Why would it be both poles on a flat Earth map? I would like you to present if the polar projection that I showed or that I used is not the accurate map, please provide the accurate map when you come back the next time.
Thank you.
You could not account for the flight patterns that we talked about, and these only get worse as we continue. And
I think it's worse.
yes, and you could not account for the difference between flight and swimming, because if a bird can lift itself aloft in the air, that's really not any different than using fins to lift yourself aloft in the water. It's just
right. So that's my thing. So is gravity intelligent enough to know the difference between a bird and a fish?
We can get into that. I want you to watch the. We're going to have to close it up soon, out of respect for yourself and your 10-year-old who is hungry.
He's hungry,
and other things. I don't want to abuse my guest. You've been on for 2 hours. I thank you for that. We've never done a 2-hour podcast on this show.
Oh, well, I'm special then. I appreciate it.
You're not just special, sir.
I'm really happy that you are not trolling us.
Yeah, you did 2 hours, and we need to come back and talk to you again.
Yes, sir.
And the next time around, you'll be better prepared. And I just wanted to let you know, where we're going with this. So we'll work out when that's going to happen. I'm going to have to let you go because we've got other things we need to get to as well.
Yes, sir.
But again, I want to thank you one more time for being on and for being believably sincere.
Yes.
If you're a Poe, you're a great Poe because I didn't get any kind of dishonesty out of you. So.
Also, like we're glad that you're sincere, but we don't agree with you, and we'd also like to show you our evidence for the spherical Earth next time.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to see that.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to have to let you go, but thank you, Ali, for being on. And
yes, sir.
We will schedule something else. I don't know when. We'll talk about that in email.
Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah.
Thank you for everyone else that's watching, and I'm going to have to close it up.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, YouTube.
Excellent. And do we need to throw in a couple of words before I before I stop this broadcast? How people can connect with you or what they should look up? What do you want to refer people to?
I want to refer people to a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Feed Your Mind. It's a channel that is not necessarily flat Earth or not. I would have to say the information that's presented shows science and also observation as well. I think that the information that's there could spark an interest that could open the gate to other. What am I trying to say? I should say, and the research is what's going to make the difference in each individual who finds an interest in this.
All right. With that, thank you very much, everyone, and good night.